What unfolds when a flight attendant strikes a woman she believes is out of place, only to discover that the woman is the owner of the jet and her employer? The first thing that touched Danielle Covington as she stepped onto the tarmac in Santa Monica was the heavy scent of jet fuel mingling with the salty ocean air. She wrapped her blue blazer around herself more snugly, the early morning breeze sweeping across the private airfield. The Gulfstream G700 shimmered under the rising sun, its polished surface radiating a brilliance that was nearly overwhelming. It was her plane, her pride, yet to anyone observing her, it remained a hidden truth. Danielle ascended the short stairway, her low heels softly echoing with each step, creating a gentle rhythm that filled the air. Inside, the cabin was still empty and quiet, the plush leather seats and mahogany panels patiently awaiting the arrival of their guests. She gently set her carry-on beside the seat she cherished, on the right side, in the second row. In a moment of spontaneity, she let her blazer slip from her shoulders, gently laying it across the seat. The journey was meant to be just another ordinary flight to Dallas, a brief pause for a board meeting, and then a return to LA, Vowboy Toy. Danielle glanced at her watch, a wave of emotion washing over her. She arrived ahead of time, just like she always did. She cherished the moments of anticipation that came with being early. It offered her a moment to pause before the day engulfed her completely. But that tranquility was fleeting. A piercing voice cut through the air from behind her. "Shin loy, ban la ai, v'ban dang lam zio day." Danielle turned with a gentle grace. A flight attendant in her 30s, slender with her striking blonde hair neatly pulled back in a tight bun, walked purposefully down the aisle toward her. Her face was contorted with doubt, her stance rigid as if she were preparing for an impending clash. Danielle maintained a gentle cadence in her voice. "I'm meant to be here," she said softly, offering the woman a gentle, courteous smile. But the attendant remained unyielding. She paused just a few feet away, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. "And who, may I ask, granted you permission to step onto this aircraft?" Danielle's eyes fluttered open in surprise. Did this truly happen? "I own the plane," she said, her voice steady and unwavering, each word resonating with a profound sense of conviction. The attendant's laugh pierced the air, reminiscent of a sudden bark. "Of course you really do," she said. "Thưa bà, tôi rất tiếc, nhưng tôi cần bà rời khỏi đây. Ngay lúc này." For what felt like an eternity, Danielle remained still. She gazed at the woman, her mind racing as she pondered whether this was some kind of elaborate joke. But the gaze of the attendant held a depth that was far from playful. It was truly challenging. It truly happened. Danielle took a small step forward, her voice steady yet filled with unspoken emotion. "Toi, le Danielle Covington. Toi So Hugh Covington Aviation. This is my cherished jet." There was a moment of silence, thick and uncomfortable, but it only strengthened the woman's determination. She appeared to anchor herself even more firmly, as if the words had not reached her ears, or she was unwilling to accept their truth. "You must go now," the attendant insisted once more, her voice more urgent, piercing through the cabin with an intensity that left no room for hesitation. Danielle felt a flicker of anger rise in her chest, yet she chose to suppress it, holding back the storm within. She chose to keep her voice steady and calm. She chose to hold back her emotions. That wasn't the way she carried herself. "Không ở đây, không ở đâu cả." But just as Danielle was about to speak again, the woman extended her hand and took hold of her arm. And that's when the situation shifted from uneasy to truly perilous. Danielle instinctively withdrew her arm, her movements precise yet graceful. "Let go of me," she said, her voice turning icy. There was a calmness in the air, a steady voice cutting through the silence with a resolute and unmistakable caution. But Melinda, the flight attendant, stood her ground. Instead, she moved a step nearer, her expression strained with disbelief and a deeper, more troubling emotion lurking beneath. "Do you really believe you can casually walk onto private property and weave a tale to secure a complimentary flight?" She let out a soft, sharp sound. Tôi không biết bạn đang lừa đảo gì, nhưng hôm nay không phải là ngày của bạn. Danielle squared her shoulders, locking her gaze with unwavering intensity. I'm not deceiving anyone, she said. I am the very essence that brought this plane into being. Bạn không biết mình đang nói chuyện với ai đâu. Nearby, the engines on the runway outside stirred awake, their distant growls resonating with a sense of anticipation. Inside the cabin, it was as if the entire universe condensed to encompass only the two of them, a palpable tension suspended in the dense, suffocating atmosphere. For a fleeting moment, Danielle held on to the hope that the woman might truly hear her, that she might come to understand the gravity of her choices. But instead, Melinda's eyes swept over Danielle's jeans, her modest shoes, the blue blazer casually resting on the seat, and her expression grew even more resolute. In her mind, Danielle appeared far from the image of a billionaire. She didn't align with the image Melinda had envisioned of refined white businessmen or distinguished older gentlemen adorned in tailored suits and Rolex watches. Danielle could perceive everything unfolding within her mind, akin to witnessing a heartbreaking film where the conclusion was already etched in her memory. She made another attempt, taking her time this time. "Call for the captain," Danielle urged. "Receive." But she was unable to complete her thought. In a moment of overwhelming emotion, Melinda lifted her hand and struck her. The sound pierced the cabin, intense and jarring, reverberating against the gleaming walls and soft leather seats. Danielle moved forward with grace. She remained silent. She remained completely composed. She remained still, one hand gently rising to caress her cheek, her brown eyes meeting Melinda's with an unsettling, haunting serenity. For the first time, Melinda appeared to understand that she had just stepped over a threshold that could never be undone. Passengers began to make their way onto the plane behind them, clutching their bags, exchanging soft whispers filled with anticipation. But they stood in silence, their hearts heavy as they took in the poignant scene before them. The silence was so profound, it felt as if time itself had paused. In a moment that seemed to freeze time, a tech executive from Phoenix let his coffee cup slip from his grasp. It fell onto the carpet with a gentle thud, warm coffee seeping into the fibers, creating a poignant moment of vulnerability. Another woman, a real estate investor from Scottsdale, gasped audibly and instinctively pulled her son behind her as if to protect him at all costs. Mọi người đều nhìn Danielle, không phải với sự nghi ngờ, mà là với một cảm giác gần gũi hơn với sự kinh hoàng. Nhưng điều này vẫn chưa kết thúc, thậm chí còn chưa gần. Danielle allowed the moment to linger, feeling each second wrap around them more tightly, like a rubber band on the verge of breaking. Her cheek still felt warm, yet she refrained from touching it once more. She held her composure, denying Melinda the pleasure of witnessing her response. Instead, she gently bent down, retrieved her blazer from the seat, and delicately brushed away an unseen speck from the sleeve. Melinda, in that moment, appeared to be coming to a poignant realization, perhaps a touch too late, that she may have committed the gravest error of her professional life. "I'm calling security," she whispered, her hands trembling as she fumbled to pull a small radio from her waistband. "You are crossing a boundary that should be respected." Danielle gently eased her arm into the blazer's sleeve, then the other, savoring each moment, moving with a thoughtful grace. "Xin hãy," cô ấy nói nhẹ nhàng, "hãy gọi cho họ." Several of the new passengers exchanged anxious glances. A few hesitated and stepped back toward the door, torn between the decision to stay or leave. Chur I dam cantheep. It felt as though the air was thick with anticipation, as if everyone held their breath, eager to witness who would ignite the next spark in this tense situation. From the front of this plane, the captain, a tall man with dark skin and silver at his temples, finally stepped out of the cockpit, his expression heavy with concern. His name was Captain Roland Gates, and he had dedicated nearly 6 years of his life to flying for Covington Aviation. Upon seeing Danielle, his eyes lit up with surprise, only to quickly transform into a steely gaze. "Miss Covington," he said, his voice resonating with a weight that pierced the heavy silence. "Is everything okay?" Melinda spun around, her eyes wide as she gazed at the captain, as if he had uttered words from a distant realm. "Miss Covington," she echoed softly. That's Sue le Coe le Miss Covington sow. Danielle remained silent, her thoughts heavy in the air. She held her gaze on Captain Gates, offering a gentle nod. Captain, she said, I feel there has been a profound misunderstanding. Captain Gates moved ahead, his demeanour a blend of tension and deep respect. With a heavy heart, he expressed his regret, casting a piercing look at Melinda. We will take care of this right away. Melinda's face lost all its colour. She glanced around frantically, as though desperately seeking an escape, as if there was still a glimmer of hope for redemption. You're not serious, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. This woman claimed that she is the owner of the plane. Danielle finally focused all her attention on her. I don't merely possess the plane, Danielle said, her voice flowing like a gentle stream. Toi là người sở hữu công ty Covington Aviation Group, chiếc jet này, chuyến bay này, và từng nhân viên trên đó. She allowed that moment to linger, letting Melinda's universe sway and whirl as the rest of the cabin clung to each word spoken. Yet, the feeling of shame was merely the first step. What followed was truly heartbreaking. Melinda stood still, her lips parted in disbelief, the radio slipping from her grasp. The weight of the moment pressed down on her as understanding washed over her like a tidal wave. Passengers began to murmur softly, their voices filled with intense emotion. A man near the exit lowered his head, a look of deep disappointment etched on his face. Another person took out their phone, the camera aimed directly at Melinda, poised to document whatever emotional unraveling might unfold next. Captain Gates moved in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for Danielle and Melinda. You must apologize, he insisted, with a sense of urgency. Melinda's gaze flitted between the captain and Danielle, filled with unspoken emotions. A heartfelt apology? After everything she had done? After striking a woman who truly belonged here? Who truly possessed all that was around them? For a brief moment it seemed as though Melinda was on the verge of expressing her thoughts with passion. Her body tightened, her jaw locked in a grip so fierce it felt as if it could shatter, but then something within her appeared to lose its spark. Her shoulders drooped, and her face turned a deep, embarrassed crimson. She whispered, I'm so sorry. It felt fragile, empty, a gesture of remorse lacking substance. Danielle gazed at her, frozen in place. She had no desire to listen to a scripted line. She sought no performance for the onlookers. She longed for Melinda to truly grasp the impact of her hasty judgment, her bias, her lack of respect, realizing that it went beyond merely hurting Danielle's pride. It unveiled a profound affliction that lay beneath the surface. Danielle gently reached into the inside pocket of her blue blazer. In silence, she revealed a small, weighty business card. Deep black adorned with elegant gold foil, exuding simplicity and strength. She set it down carefully on the closest tray table between them, as if challenging the very air around them. It read, in elegant, precise letters, Danielle Covington, CEO and founder of Covington Aviation Group. Melinda gazed at it with a mix of awe and trepidation, as if it held a pulse of its own. Her mouth moved, yet silence enveloped her. She took a step back, her heart racing, and found herself colliding with a seat, clutching it tightly to steady herself. Captain Gates glanced at Danielle with a profound sense of connection. Do you wish for her to be taken off the flight, Ms. Covington? Danielle paused before responding. She glanced around at the quiet, wide-eyed passengers, at the staff huddled anxiously near the cockpit door, and finally back at Melinda, who stood there, small and trembling like a child awaiting a reprimand. She had the power to ruin her completely, to expose her in front of everyone, to dismiss her immediately, to bring legal action, ensuring that Melinda would never find a place in aviation again. But Danielle wasn't here to bring harm. She came with a purpose to share her knowledge. No, Danielle said finally, her voice piercing the heavy silence with an unexpected clarity. She will remain. The whole cabin appeared to release a collective breath in unison, a deep, trembling sigh that had gone unnoticed by all. Melinda gazed upward, her expression a mix of bewilderment, astonishment, and a hint of appreciation. Young Danielle Venture dung lai da. You're going to serve me, Danielle said softly, with a sense of respect and care, just as it should have been from the very start. Let's take a moment to discover something meaningful today. And if Melinda believed the darkest days had passed, she was mistaken. It was only the beginning. The stillness within the jet lingered, interrupted solely by the soft hum of the engines as they prepared for taxi. Melinda nodded with a heavy heart, swallowing hard, her hands gripping tightly, knuckles turning white. She stepped back, smoothing her uniform jacket, attempting to put herself back together, bit by bit. Danielle nestled into her seat, as if she possessed an eternity to embrace the moment. She crossed one leg over the other and gazed out the window, seemingly oblivious to the rising warmth enveloping her. The boarding process felt like an eternity for everyone on that plane. Moi hang kak moi lentau deo nyin Melinda ve angmat day takmak. Murmurs floated through the air, while others openly expressed their disbelief with solemn shakes of their heads. Murmurs filled the air, pointing toward Danielle with eyes full of wonder. Melinda pushed herself to carry on, her smile rigid, offering drinks with a constricted throat, moving like a marionette caught in a web of tangled strings. Every time she glanced at Danielle, she felt a profound realization, not through words, but through the very essence of her being, that she had underestimated someone with a depth of strength beyond her understanding. As the plane ascended above the shimmering California coastline, Danielle reclined in her seat and gently shut her eyes, sensing the tender release of gravity's embrace. Her silence spoke volumes. By hoc zien ramut kak tu nien, nu te không condin su cantip của cô ấy. 2 hours into the flight, Melinda approached Danielle's seat, her hands trembling as they gently smoothed the hem of her jacket. "May I offer you a refreshing beverage, dear lady?" she asked, her voice soft, filled with emotion. Danielle gradually opened her eyes, taking in the world around her. "Nuk, cô ấy nói, nhiệt độ phong, không đa." "Of course," Melinda nodded, hurrying to carry out the simple request, as if it were the most important thing in the world. Passengers glanced subtly from the edges of their vision, feigning interest in magazines or emails, yet the change in atmosphere was palpable to all. Mọi người đều cảm nhận được điều đó. This was so much more than a simple drink. It was a reflection on the profound nature of respect and how fragile it can be, easily bestowed or withdrawn based solely on mere assumptions. As Melinda came back, her hands were steady yet filled with tension. She gently set the glass on the table, ensuring not a single drop was spilled. Danielle gazed at the glass, then lifted her eyes to meet hers. "Thank you," Danielle whispered with a heartfelt sincerity. It was simple and polite, yet from Danielle it felt like an immense weight had been lifted. Melinda took a step back, offering a single nod before she returned to her station, embodying the poise and resolve of a soldier sent back to duty. The remainder of the flight unfolded in a peculiar stillness. There were no disputes, no raised voices, only the profound heaviness of repercussions enveloping everyone like a comforting shroud. Yet the true confrontation awaited them upon their arrival. As the wheels made contact with the ground at Dallas Love Field, the plane glided to a gentle halt on the private terminal runway. The sun ascended steadily, stretching long, poignant shadows across the tarmac. The air inside the cabin felt dense, almost more oppressive than the humid Texas air lingering just beyond the door. Captain Gates made the usual announcement over the intercom, expressing gratitude to the passengers for choosing Covington Aviation. But his voice held a deeper resonance this time, a touch more poignant, a bit more deliberate. As passengers collected their belongings, a man in a navy suit and dark sunglasses stood quietly by the door, observing the scene with a sense of solemnity. He was not just another pilot or a flight attendant. He came from the corporate world. Danielle's professional journey. Melinda caught sight of him immediately, her face draining of color as if she could become even more ghostly. Her fingers trembled as they struggled with the clasp on her service apron. Her breathing became faint. Người đàn ông trong bộ vest không nói gì cả. He chose to do it anyway. His mere presence conveyed the weight of the situation, revealing that it had escalated beyond a simple slap, a misunderstanding, or a heated moment at 30,000 feet. Danielle lingered, allowing the others to step off before her. She took her time. She always took her time. With a gentle determination, she collected her bag, rose slowly, adjusted her blue blazer with care, and made her way to the front of the plane where Melinda and the suited man awaited her. For a moment, Melinda appeared as if she might collapse to her knees, imploring, yearning, desperate to mend what she had shattered. Danielle chose not to grant her that sense of fulfillment. "People will forget what you said," Danielle murmured softly, her voice gentle and soothing, carrying a warmth that lingered in the air. "People may not remember your actions, but the emotions you evoked in them will linger in their hearts forever." Melinda's lips trembled, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You made me feel unseen," Danielle continued, "as if I didn't have a place in a space I created myself, as though I had to justify my existence just to take a seat." The suited man observed quietly, his demeanor filled with respect, allowing Danielle to embrace her moment fully. "And that," Danielle said, stepping closer, "will come at a price far greater than this job." Melinda's knees wobbled, and she reached out to the doorframe for stability. Danielle spoke softly. She remained composed. She chose to do it anyway. She turned and stepped off the plane into the Texas sun, the world wide open in front of her, while behind her, Melinda stood amidst the remnants of her own choices. Passengers lingering in the terminal turned their gaze as Danielle walked by. Mot vaingui gat do mut kak king chung. A few softly spoke her name, not in gossip, but with a gentle sense of reverence. Danielle adjusted her sunglasses, hoisted her carry-on and kept walking, her heels clicking against the polished floor, each step resonating with a sense of purpose and determination. Yet, the most significant aspect of the journey transcended the flight itself. It was the message that lingered in the atmosphere for all who witnessed the unfolding moment. Outside the private terminal, Danielle's driver, a tall woman with tightly coiled hair and a sharp navy suit, stood patiently by the black town car, embodying a sense of unwavering dedication. Danielle gently passed her bag, took a deep breath, and settled into the back seat, quietly shutting the door behind her. As they drove away from the airport, Danielle rested her head against the cool window, her gaze lingering on the runways fading into the horizon. Her cheeks still throbbed gently from the sting of the slap, yet it was not the physical pain that lingered in her mind. What resonated was the larger perspective, how effortlessly individuals determined who was worthy of admiration and who was not, how swiftly they dismissed you, judging by your attire, your complexion, the narratives they held in their minds long before you had a chance to speak, and how at times the most profound response wasn't found in the volume of your words. It was remaining in place, serene, unwavering. In the rearview mirror, the driver took a moment to look back at her, a wave of emotion washing over her. "Are you well, Ma'am?" Danielle offered a soft, bittersweet smile. "I'm fine," she replied. "Certain lessons carry a weight that is far greater than others." They navigated the bustling streets of Dallas, gliding by shimmering glass skyscrapers and cozy local diners, moving past hard-working construction crews and talented street musicians, all while witnessing the everyday lives of people hurrying through their intricate journeys. Individuals who face judgment, underestimation, and neglect at every moment of their existence. Danielle felt deep within her that her story was just one of many yet to unfold. She understood that countless other planes, offices, boardrooms, and street corners existed where someone else would need to gently remind the world that true value transcends mere appearances. But today, in her own way, she had made a profound statement. As the town car vanished into the bustling streets, the words she held within her remained unwavering. Always embrace your true self, regardless of how others may perceive you. Make them open their eyes in awe. Encourage them to adapt. True strength quietly reveals itself without fanfare. It resonates most deeply in those instances when you remain steadfast while others falter. If you ever feel the weight of others' judgments before you have a chance to express yourself, hold on to the truth that your value was never theirs to determine. Stand tall, remain composed, and allow the essence of your being to speak for itself.